In my company, if somebody develops a reputation as a loose cannon, that's not somebody who's going to engender a lot of trust.
What if he's outstanding at what he does, but the company game plan does not include him?
How can I hope to change them?
Are you saying don't take risks?
How is it that we stand out but also are part of the team?
Yes.
Yes.
Can a manager be a leader?
What is a leader? Might be a question that we should discuss right now. I'll propose this definition for you. There are many definitions. One definition of leadership is that leaders are those people who give unselfishly to others, allowing them to achieve their goals and objectives quicker and easier than they would have been able to achieve them without the leader's influence. The operative word there is that leaders give, that leaders are unselfish. Managers aren't always unselfish. Managers don't always give.
Aren't you kind of generalizing when you talk about leaders?
Maybe I am, Bob, but I'll tell you one thing I don't generalize about, and that is that there's no such thing as a lousy leader. Leaders aren't lousy, leaders are good. There's a few lousy managers around, far too many of them actually, but there's no such thing as a lousy leader. Leaders look at life differently than managers, and leaders have a sense of direction. Leadership is about creating a direction. Managing is about how to get there.
There are formal leaders and informal leaders.
Right.
Absolutely.
Anywhere in the organization, a true leader, informal leader, may have a great deal more influence, power ultimately, than a formally designated.
Susan, that is wonderfully put. Absolutely. Some of the very best things that go on in my organizations and in your organizations don't happen because of leaders or leadership. Happen because of followership, exemplary followers. Most people who in their life transition somehow to that role of leader have gotten there only because at one time they were an exemplary follower. In 1776, when they called the Continental Congress, Thomas Jefferson was a mere afterthought in being a member of that Congress. And they did 3 or 4 drafts of the Declaration of Independence. And finally, they didn't like any of the drafts, and Thomas Jefferson sat down and wrote his own draft, which they accepted as the ultimate Declaration of Independence. But he was a follower. It was 8 years later, before it was published, that Thomas Jefferson actually authored the Declaration of Independence. They thought Benjamin Franklin and John Adams, who were the chairs, authored the Declaration. So sometimes we have to learn how to follow before we can possibly assimilate how to lead.
I want you to expand on that a little bit. How is it that we stand out but also are part of the team? Yes.
How do we build this trust?
Well, that brings us back full circle, doesn't it? To the 3 words that I think are linchpins of the future: trust, respect, and admire. One of the phrases I like to use is do right when you're not in sight. The way we can become trusted is through our behavior. And are we really trustworthy? Should people really respect us? Do people really admire us? I mean, that used to be a luxury in the workplace. Tomorrow's workplace, in the context of teamwork that you brought up, Susan, is absolutely critical. We have to really, at the base level, understand this issue. Do I behave in such a way that people trust me? Do I do right when I'm out of sight? Do I do right when I know nobody's going to find out? Do people have reason and justification to respect me? And do people want to admire me? In the context of teamwork, in the futuristic workplace, that's where the action is. You can't con that deal over time. People are going to find out. That's in our soul, that's in our heart. That deals with the ethicality of the individual. It also deals with the ethicality of the futuristic workplace and the ethicality of the organization. I would propose to each and every one of you that corporations do not have ethics, that there is no such thing as an ethical corporation, and there's no such thing as an unethical corporation. There is certainly such a thing as an ethical person, an ethical team, or an unethical workforce. And they, over time, will become the characterization of the company. Every one of us ultimately walks a path that has two behavioral components, the to-do component and the to-be component. It's the anchor of knowing what we want to be that gives us the freedom to choose what we want to do. Our to-be side embraces the core principles and values that represent our conscience when we make choices about what we want to do. We all need an active to-be identity to maintain balance and decency and ethicality. Success without principle is ultimately suicide. The higher your ladder takes you, the more important it becomes that we understand that an organization doesn't have a conscience, that there's no such thing as an ethical or unethical corporation. Those characteristics come from its leadership, which either enriches or damages the quality of the enterprise through the to-be model.
Leaders give to others unselfishly. Leaders are almost always followers first. A leader's requirements to be trusted, respected, and admired. Leader ethics determine an organization's values.
Do you believe that, do you think it would be better to combine the two roles of leadership and management, or should they stay separate entities?
Leaders and managers, generally speaking, do not do the same jobs. Obviously, there's overlap, but their role is different. The leaders are substantially the designers. I talked with Bob about his planning process. That is designing the game plan for the organization. The managers are more the doers. The managers are the folks who would implement Bob's plan, who would be on the firing line getting it done day by day and would be accountable for making it happen. Leadership is about empowerment. Now, not all managers, even some of the good ones, are not empowerers of people. But leaders almost always tend to be, because they have assimilated the human dimension of leadership. Empowerment, however, is not just an opportunity, it's a responsibility. There are people in America's workplace today who have been given an opportunity of empowerment. They have been empowered, and they've blown it. Because in the long run, effective empowerment requires emotional maturity. If someone is to be empowered, and over time, if it's going to work for the benefit of the people, the person, and the organization, then that person will have to be emotionally mature enough to understand it and to deal with it in a mature way. Otherwise, they will blow it. They may become a bully. They may become a tyrant. They may become a lot of inappropriate things, and ultimately, they will find themselves purged by this effective team. So there's responsibility there too. It's not just that someone is empowered. It's about the business of understanding the role of empowered people and the responsibility that gives each and every one of us.
I appreciate a lot of what you're saying, and it's a direction I would like to take with my people. But I see difficulties coming from two fronts. From the other managers like myself who are going, "What the hell are you doing? Who's in charge of your division?" And the same from above. It's fine to be courageous and to set new policy like that, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to handle that kind of dissension, both lateral dissension and vertical dissension, if you follow.
Steve, interesting point there. I think it's important that we understand and appreciate and allow that different people will respond to the opportunity differently. God made all of us in many different ways. We all have a lot of strengths. All of us have at least some offsetting weaknesses. Some people assimilate change, assimilate the reform in the workplace that we're talking about, which is my word for change. They'll assimilate this reform readily. Some of them will assimilate it very reluctantly. And we have, as leaders, to understand that people are different. In simplistic terms, some people are more inclined toward the task than toward other people. They're the task-oriented people. Some people are more inclined toward a faster pace than the slower pace, and vice versa. So we have to try to generate some understanding of human behavior, and that's a part of this human dimension. I believe that we have come a long way in the last several years in America. We have a longer way to go. There is a need to understand something more about human behavior than we understand today, and how people are different, and how, therefore, we have to lead them in different ways, because it's not a vanilla box. Not everybody is the same. Not everybody wants to be thrown reform at the same pace. Not everybody wants to be a people person. Not everybody wants to be a task person. We have to understand the difference. And in that understanding is part of the skill that leadership is all about.
You say that a leader doesn't necessarily exercise power, but that a manager might. Well, doesn't that manager ultimately exercise that power through the license or the approval of the...
Through the title, through the position, through the title? Yes. Yes, oftentimes. But a leader will tend to use power, Steve, but when he or she uses power, it will tend to be felt less, if that makes sense. Managers will often use power in a way that is felt, oftentimes in a negative way. Leaders will use less power, and it will be felt in more moderate ways and in ways that probably feel better to a lot of people. You see, there's two dimensions of leadership. One is the numerical dimension. We talked about planning, the strategies, the forecasts, the budgets. All of those are numerical things, and that's important to leading an organization or leading a group of people. But the other dimension that is becoming more and more important is the human dimension, the human side of leadership. That's what the decade is all about. When we talk about this decade being the decade of the human resource, we're talking about the emphasis shifting toward the people skills. We must understand in corporate America and in any form of working America that it's people that ultimately are going to make our world sing to us. And we have to understand what they want and how to treat them, even in a very difficult working environment, even in a very difficult job market. The human side, the human dimension, is the critical part of leadership. I like to say, for example, that we can manage from the mind, but we must lead from the heart.
Leaders design, managers implement. Empowerment is opportunity and responsibility. Leaders adapt to different people's strengths. Different means different, not bad. Manage from the mind, lead from the heart.
Many of us spend a good portion of our lives trying to be like everyone else, the process of peering. But tomorrow's workplace will require something quite different. I call it unpeering, the process of differentiating ourselves from the average, the typical. The clue to your tomorrow rests in your willingness and ability to be different, to accept responsibility and opportunity to become your own style of achiever. I like to look at it as a three-step process. First of all, we must learn to manage. And manage in itself is an art form. Let's not give it too short a shrift here. It is important work, very important work done by many, many good people. First, we learn how to manage, but then we must learn how, in a way, to unmanage. And only when we learn to unmanage do we have an opportunity to learn how to lead. I call that MUL, manage, unmanage, and lead.
So what are we talking about when you say unmanage? I'm not quite clear what you mean by that.
We have to learn how not to be the doers. We have to learn how not to stay so close to the detail. We have to learn how to offer others the opportunity to take those thoughts and those strategies and become the doers while we transition into a broader basis of opportunity and understanding and responsibility. So I ask each and every one of you to think about, would you rather be liked or would you rather be respected? Which is more important to you? And rather than have you give your answer, just keep that to yourself. But let me say that at the level of leadership, where trust, respect, and admiration are critical, almost all leaders will opt to be respected. Why? Because it's very easy to be liked for the wrong reason. I can be the most popular guy on the staff. And what does that say about me? It may say a lot of bad things about me. But if I am the most respected person on the staff, what does that say about me? The choices we have to make are sometimes tough. It is more difficult. It is more challenging to be respected than to be liked. Leadership is a journey. I mean, I'm never going to get there. I am never going to be the perfect leader. You folks will never be the perfect leader. Hopefully, we'll all be better at tomorrow than we are today. Hopefully, the best we'll be is on the day we leave this earth, because it's a constant, challenging, evolving, learning, understanding, preparatory process that is never ending. So don't look at people as leader or manager, but look at them in terms of their sense of transition. Where do they seem to be going? Are they improving? Maybe they're still not very good, but are they getting better? Are they trying to assimilate these new habits and these new thoughts? If so, they deserve your support.
Differentiate yourself. Unpeer. MUL. Manage, unmanage, lead. Leadership is a continuing journey. Being respected is more important to a leader than being liked.
The leadership role is a directional role. The leader deals in directional development. In other words, where are we headed? That's a question answered in the workplace in one word: planning. And planning is essential to creating focus. No plan, no focus. No focus, no strategy. No strategy, no leadership. No leadership, big problem. While a leader is planning and charting the course, the manager is more involved in determining how we're going to get there. Who is going to do it? At what price and pace do we get there? And very importantly, what's the deadline? You might say leaders create the plan, managers implement it. The leader's role is substantially one of creating an organized, planned environment within which managers can be effective. A manager working with a strategic plan has a much better bead on the target and an opportunity to keep it in sight. The important question is, has leadership provided a plan? The buck stops there.
For me, this ties back into what you were saying about having a clear mission, in that when an employee comes to a company or when I go to a company, I know what the mission of that company is, and when I get hired and when I agree to take the job, I'm buying into that mission, and then I can be evaluated on that basis. It doesn't become a personal thing, but somebody could come say to me, here's our mission, you're not fitting into that, and I can see that in my people as well.
But Eric, think of the difficulty you have when you go into an organization that doesn't have a mission, that doesn't have a plan, that don't know where they're going. Maybe don't care. Maybe have never dealt with it. I mean, how handicapped are you in providing the inputs to them that creates the outcomes that you think they need? You really can't do it, can you? All because the leadership of the organization hasn't dealt with ground zero, and that is, where do we want to go? What's our focus? What's our mission? What are we all about? Where do we want to be? What do we want to do when we grow up? Those issues for suppliers and vendors of the type you're talking about at your agency, hey, that's critical. If it's a handicap for you, think what a tremendous disabler it is for them.
Create a plan so managers can be effective. Communicate your plan frequently.
People with a sense of urgency get more done and do it on time. A sense of urgency drives an internal engine. The urgent doers are the implementers of important work. Once the doers latch on to an idea, it moves forward from thought to action, from action to completion. So, desire provides the fuel and the mental thrust required to make decisions. Once that decision is made, it's time for action. It's the willingness to take action that creates results, and it's results that create achievement. Action means just what it implies: recognizing an opportunity, making a decision, then stepping out and giving the decision life. Achievers are interested in realizing the greatest return and having the greatest impact in the least time. How have you been impacted? What are you going to do to embrace change in your workaday life?
Well, I think the thing that you said that's impressed me the most refers to your emphasis on being respected rather than liked. And I think the ticket to that is through ethical behavior. And I think there's been a real erosion of that in the workplace in general. And personally, I'm going to do my damnedest to see if I can arrest that, and to be an example which other people can emulate, at least in the way I deal with other people.
Well, now I know that in order to initiate the change that I want to take place in the company, I've got to go to the board with a well-defined mission, a focused goal, and to stay ethical in order to maintain the trust that they've put in me so far. And I think that will help me get over the points that I want to get across.
I'd like to add to that in that I agree with Bob about the mission, having a mission that's clear, but also the idea of having that be a shared mission, and the idea of really getting a collaborative team that works towards that mission. And I think for myself, I'd really like to go back and try to get people to communicate a little more, to understand where each other is coming from, and to really work at becoming a team.
And I think sometimes it's the simplest insights that get overlooked. And so for my employees, I think what I can use immediately is making a much better effort. There's only 5 of them, for heaven's sakes. I ought to be able to play to their strengths much more than I do. Really pay attention to that.
From listening to you, I've come to the conclusion that I'm having a problem of thinking as opposed to feeling. I am feeling in response to what they're saying to me instead of thinking, because my feelings are, my immediate reaction to any kind of criticism about, you could do better, you could get this more up to speed with the rest of us, is that I start feeling right away this fear about making a mistake, the anger towards other people wanting me to put my foot out there and maybe trip over something. And when I should be maybe thinking about what they're saying without bringing the emotion of feeling into it.
And I think what today has done is really affirmed to me that my instincts about values and nurturing and encouragement and empowerment and human relationships are right. And not only are they right, but they're valuable to me and my people and my company. And so I can, with greater confidence, I think, be that kind of a leader for my people.
Thanks to all of you for being here today. I enjoyed it immensely. Remember, you, as individuals, are the architect of your own future. Think of that acronym CAR. That's courage, that's accountability, that's reform. Practice those words with a deep sense of mission. Have fun doing it. Habits of Wealth is designed to help you strengthen your readiness for the futuristic workplace and enhance your skills. But personal development is not enough. Your effectiveness will be directly impacted by your people skills. As we've said earlier, this is the decade of the human resource, which requires, among other things, a considerable focus and a considerable understanding of the human dimension of leadership. You're on your way. You've taken a big step in your evolution toward being a leader in the futuristic workplace. Continue your development. With careful preparation, you'll find your niche in the office place of tomorrow.
Becoming a leader is an evolving journey, facilitated by written strategy. Being a leader in the futuristic workplace will be associated with motivations that are trusted, behavior that is respected, and skill that is admired.